Well, hey guys, did you ever wonder who the first guy to use the curveball competitively in collegiate baseball was? Well, for many years, that was considered to be George Augustus Sykes. And we're going to introduce you to him today and tell you a little bit of his baseball story. And oh, by the way, if you like this kind of content, boot that like button. On May 17th, 1878, the members of the Washington Lee baseball team climbed on board a bunch of stagecoaches for the first part of what was going to be a 2-day journey to Charlottesville for what would become a memorable game, maybe even a historic one. When the baseball players got to Charlottesville, they were greeted by the students who had given up their dorm rooms to the Washington Lee players. The Washington Lee players were a little bit salty because the year before, Virginia had won 19-17. Washington Lee's student newspaper said of the game, "The coming game is to be the test of skill between two large universities, and the issue will generally be known throughout this and other states. It would be a pity then for us to injure the enviable reputation so deservedly earned by our nines. We warn our nine that if the result should prove fatal, imprecations long and lasting will be heaped on their devoted heads." Talk about pressure from your fans. It seems that few really expected Washington Lee to beat this Virginia team. That's because nobody knew about the incredible curveballs that were going to be pitched by Washington Lee's George Augustus Sykes of the class of 1879. A guy named Candy Cummings is credited with inventing the curveball in Brooklyn, New York in the 1860s. He first used the curve when he pitched for Brooklyn's Excelsior Club against Harvard in October of 1867. In 1875, a guy named Bobby Matthews used his curve against a semi-pro team in Louisville, Kentucky. Two students at Louisville's rugby prep, a guy named George Sykes and William McElwee, were at that game and then became Washington Lee classmates and baseball teammates. Sykes was the pitcher and McElwee was his catcher. It seems that McElwee and Sykes asked Matthews for a post-game lesson on the finer points of making that pitch. Of the curve, Sykes says, "One day I was pitching to Jack Hamilton, class of 1877, about halfway along the fence of old Johnny's residence. The bell rang for the 11 o'clock class, and Jack had to go. Before he went, I threw the final ball, and I took a different hold on the ball and delivered it with a snap. I asked Jack if he saw the ball curve, and he said he did. I did not go to class, but instead got somebody else to catch, and in 15 minutes I could put that curveball anywhere I wanted to." Sykes played the 1877 game in right field. Now this is the game where Virginia won. He did come in for relief in the 9th inning. The bettors and gamblers of the day were putting most of their money on Virginia since they had won the previous year. While Sykes warmed up, he threw only the fair pitch, the one that went straight into the strike zone. He was even approached by a Virginia student who wanted to place a bet. The student wanted to bet Sykes that one of their players who had homered in his first at bat the previous game would do the same thing in this one. Sykes told him that he never bet on a game that he was playing in, but he would have no trouble in finding him somebody that would take up his bet. The Washington Lee scorekeeper, a guy named Perg Thomas, took all the bets. When the game began, the Virginia batters were no match for Sykes' curve. He struck out 12 and only allowed 3 hits. Washington Lee won 12-0. The Virginia University Magazine complained, "We were innocent victims of as scurvy a trick as has ever been exhibited in the annals of baseball." The magazine said Mr. Sykes pitched his curves, and the batsman made 3 strikes and the catcher put the unfortunate individual out with infinite regularity and cool enjoyment. A post-game banquet was held in Washington and Lee's honor. Once back on campus, Sykes' curveball continued to be the topic of conversation. One of the professors even doubted openly that Sykes could make the ball do what he claimed. He took the professor out to a tree in the yard and stood him a few yards behind the tree. Then he went to a spot somewhere 50 feet or so in front of the tree and threw the ball. Everybody watching saw the ball curve around the tree and hit the professor right in the head. Sykes' curveball really might not have been the first one. Princeton claims to have a pitcher that used the curve in May of '75 in a game against Yale. By the time Sykes died in 1934, the claim of being first had been changed somewhat to be the first curveball in Southern collegiate baseball. Nonetheless, it was a profound moment because, the next year, Virginia refused to play Washington and Lee. They were waiting for Sykes to graduate, or hopefully they could find their own pitcher that could throw the curve. In the Virginia University's magazine coverage of the game, it called the game the unfortunate game with Washington and Lee. It said, "May similar occasions be as pleasant. May the men of the two institutions meet in the same spirit of cordial amity. But we sincerely hope that to these agreeable incidents, the next time we meet in the intercollegiate contest, the University Nine will be able to add a curved pitcher." Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video today, and I hope you've learned a little baseball history. If George Augustus Sykes was not the very first, he was certainly one of the first collegiate pitchers to give opposing batters trouble with the curve. Thank you.